My business partner got my wife pregnant. My in-laws had known for 6 weeks before I did. When I found out, I didn't yell, I didn't slam doors, I didn't demand explanations or beg for reasons. I just pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, and started making a list. I'm a forensic accountant. I spend my days following money trails that people believed they'd buried for good. I trace what's been moved, calculate what's been lost, and build airtight cases out of cold numbers. People assume that kind of work makes you paranoid. Always looking for the lie underneath things. It doesn't. If anything, it made me trust the data I had in front of me. My marriage looked stable. My business looked solid. My life, by every measurable metric, was exactly where I'd planned for it to be. I was 34. We'd been married for 6 years. We had a condo in the Distillery District in Toronto. Not the flashiest unit in the building, but it was mine, bought 3 years before the wedding with my name alone on the title. My wife hadn't been working steadily at the time of purchase, and the bank wanted a single strong applicant. We talked about adding her name eventually. Never got around to it. I came home on a Wednesday afternoon in late November. The office had been slow and I'd left early to pick up groceries from St. Lawrence Market. I remember the bag felt heavy. I'd bought a whole chicken, a bag of clementines, a good bottle of wine I'd been saving for no particular reason. My wife was sitting at the kitchen island when I walked in, hands flat on the counter, not doing anything. Not scrolling. Not reading, just sitting. I set the bag down, said hey. She said, we needed to talk. There are certain combinations of words the brain already knows how to interpret, before the conscious mind catches up. I heard the sentence and something in me. Some deep pre-verbal part went very quiet. I'm pregnant, she said. I started to do the math the way you instinctively do. We'd been careful. Things between us weren't perfect, but they weren't broken either. I was already forming the question. She cut me off before I could ask it. It's not yours, it's his. His. She meant my business partner. The man I'd spent 4 years building a firm with from the ground up. The man who'd been in my wedding party. The man whose name sat on the door of our office beside mine. The thing about real shock is that it doesn't feel like anything you've seen in a film. There's no score underneath it. There's no adrenaline surge that sharpens the world into perfect focus. It's more like a brief system failure. A moment where all processing just stops. And you're standing in your kitchen holding a bag of groceries, and your mind is completely, genuinely empty. She kept going. It had been going on for about a year. She was keeping the baby. And then, here was the part that landed differently than the rest. Her parents already knew. They'd known for 6 weeks. Her mother had been told the afternoon my wife took the test. Her father had driven to our building 2 weeks later while I was at a conference in Ottawa. There had been conversations. About the situation. About what to do. About how to manage me. Without me. I asked her, who decided not to tell me? She looked at the counter. Everyone, she said. I didn't throw anything. I didn't raise my voice. I walked to the refrigerator and carefully put the chicken inside. Then I called her mother. She answered on the second ring. Cheerful until she heard my voice. And then the cheerfulness fell off like something that hadn't been attached very well to begin with. I know, I said. Silence. Then the voice became careful, strategic. We were going to tell you. We needed to find the right time. This affects everyone. We're family. We have to think about what's best for the family going forward. Everyone, I repeated. Her husband was in the background. I heard him say, tell him we can all sit down, work this out. You sat down together 6 weeks ago, I said. You didn't include me then. She started talking about difficult situations, difficult choices, how no one wanted anyone to get hurt. I hung up. My wife was standing in the kitchen doorway. What are you going to do? She asked. I looked at her for a long moment. 6 years. I'd thought I knew exactly who she was. I'd thought I knew who her parents were, who my business partner was, who all of them were. Turns out I'd been working with incomplete data. I'm going to make a list, I said. She blinked. That wasn't the response she was prepared for. She wanted me to argue, I think. Or break down, or negotiate. She wanted me in a state she could manage and redirect. She wanted something she could work with. I walked past her to the bedroom, pulled my old duffel from the top shelf of the closet, and packed with the same focus I bring to any complex file. Work clothes, laptop, chargers, passport, my personal hard drive, the document folder I kept in the bottom drawer, birth certificate, SIN card, degrees, CPA designation. I'd been a chartered professional accountant for 9 years. That folder went everywhere important. She followed me to the doorway. You can't just leave. What about the condo? What about the firm? I zipped the bag. There's nothing to talk about, I said. Not with you. I walked out, got in my car, drove to the end of the street and pulled over. My phone was already going. Her name on the screen. Then her mother, then her father. Then a number I didn't recognize. Borrowed probably from a neighbor, because they'd already exhausted the obvious options. I sat with the phone vibrating in the cup holder, opened the Notes app, and started writing. Things to do, in order. Numbered. The first call was to RBC. I had a joint checking account with my wife and a separate personal account. I called the joint line, explained I was initiating a separation, and asked about restricting outgoing transfers pending formal notice. They walked me through it. Then I called my financial advisor, got her voicemail, left a message about restructuring my RRSP and TFSA out of any joint beneficiary arrangements. Those accounts were mine. They needed to be unambiguously mine. Then I drove to a hotel near Pearson, not the closest, not the nicest, the one least likely to be guessed. Paid cash for 3 nights, and went up to the room. Sat on the edge of the bed. Kept writing the list. In the morning I called a family law firm I'd researched before falling asleep. One of the top practices in the city, the kind that handles Bay Street divorces without blinking at complicated asset structures. The lawyer listened to everything without interrupting, and then asked me one question. What do you want? A clean divorce, I said. The condo is in my name. I bought it before the marriage. She was never on the title. I want it. No alimony. No ongoing communication with her or her family that doesn't go through you. Done as quickly as Ontario family law allows. She made notes. This is very workable, she said. The condo is yours outright as a pre-marriage asset. There may be a claim for equalization of net family property over the marriage period. But your position is strong. Give me 48 hours. Next on the list. The firm. This was the more complicated piece. Logistically if not emotionally. My business partner and I had built something real over 4 years. 11 employees. A reputation in the forensic space that had required genuine work to establish. We'd handled fraud cases, energy sector audits, files that had gotten press. Our name meant something in the industry. He had burned it for me personally, if not professionally. And that distinction no longer mattered. I called my solicitor and explained. He was quiet for longer than I expected. Then, you know this complicates the partnership agreement. I know. I want to trigger the buyout clause. Fair market valuation. Formally out within 60 days. Can you make that happen? He said he could. I told him to start. Day 2 I spent in the hotel room doing what I do best. Methodical, patient, thorough. Facebook, not deactivated, deleted. Instagram, same. LinkedIn I stripped to the studs, removed the firm name, changed the linked email, left nothing traceable to my current life. The personal email address I'd had since university. The one that connected me to her entire family and every mutual contact we had. I changed the password to a long random string I didn't bother memorizing. Deleted the recovery number and recovery options. And locked myself out permanently. Built a new email from scratch under a format that bore no resemblance to my name. Then I called my carrier and changed my number. The woman on the phone asked if there was anything she could help with first. No, I said. She processed it without further question. New, number active within 2 hours. By day 3 I had filed divorce documents, a formal notice regarding the condo, a separation of all financial accounts, and a business buyout in progress. I had no working phone number, no personal email anyone from my old life could reach, and no social media presence to locate. The list was almost finished. The firm buyout moved faster than expected because my former business partner wanted me gone. At least as much as I wanted to leave. I imagine the atmosphere of having me walk into that office every day was not comfortable for him. Numbers were agreed upon. Papers were signed. I transferred out. My lawyer called on a Thursday. The condo listing had been up for a week. A real estate contact had it listed the day after I engaged her. The Toronto market being what it is. It moved in 9 days. I closed remotely sitting at a Tim Hortons off the highway in Sudbury, on my way west. The deposit notification came through while I was drinking a medium double-double. Just a number on a screen. I put my phone face down and finished the coffee. I'd applied to a forensic accounting position in Calgary the week I left. 1 video interview. Offer within 10 days. I accepted. Asked if I could start in 6 weeks and they said yes. I drove out in early January, through northern Ontario, across the Manitoba plains, into Alberta in winter air so cold and clear it felt like a different atmosphere entirely. Calgary is flat in a way that takes getting used to, when you've lived your whole adult life in Toronto. The sky is bigger. The winters are sharper. The mountains sit on the edge of the western horizon like something painted there. Nobody knows who you are. I rented an apartment in Beltline. Furnished it the way I actually wanted to live. A good mattress, a proper coffee setup. Books on shelves instead of in boxes. Nothing compromised by someone else's preferences. Everything chosen. The new firm was better than I'd expected. Demanding work, legitimate files. A team that cared about doing it right. My supervisor asked once, in passing, why I'd relocated from Toronto. Fresh start, I said. He nodded and moved on, People out west tend to accept that answer without pulling at it. I found a therapist in my second month. Her office was in Inglewood by the river. During our first session, she asked what brought me in. I went through a significant life change, I said, and I want to process it cleanly. I'm not in crisis. I just don't want to drift. She wrote something down. Most people who come to see me are already in the water, she said. You're still on the boat. That felt accurate. For the first 3 months, I was genuinely unreachable. New number, new email, new city. My lawyer communicated with my ex-wife, Siz's lawyer. My solicitor handled the last of the firm paperwork. Everything that needed to exist, existed on paper, through intermediaries. And then I ran into someone. A networking event in November. The kind of thing you go to once in a new city to take the temperature of your field. A man about my age came up to me and said my name. Like he wasn't sure he had it right. I recognized him after a moment. We'd gone to Wilfrid Laurier together. Same residence in second year, kept loosely in touch for a decade, gradually drifted. I hadn't thought about him in 2 years. He stared at me like I'd materialized out of a wall. I've been trying to find you, he said. Your whole life just disappeared. I gestured to the chair beside mine. He sat. Your wife's family is in rough shape, he said. Her mother called me. I have no idea how she found my number, asking if I knew where you were. Her father reached out to your old business partner. Some people thought something had happened to you. Something did happen to me, I said. I left. He looked at me steadily. Didn't you want to try to work it out? What was there to work out? He shifted. Still, their family. I looked at him. They held a meeting to decide what to do with my life. I wasn't invited. The decision about how to manage me was made by other people in a room I wasn't allowed into. The only appropriate response to that is to leave. He didn't have an answer to that. We talked for a few more minutes. He told me things. My former business partner and my ex-wife hadn't lasted. The situation had become known in certain professional circles in Toronto. He'd lost a client. Over at the firm we'd built together was struggling. She was living with her parents now. There had apparently been a scene of family gathering, where her father said something that should have stayed private. I listened. Nodded. Does any of that affect you? He asked. It's information, I said. He looked at me the way people look at their reference frame. Like I was something he didn't quite know how to file. He texted 2 days later. Just to follow up, he said. Your mother-in-law is on medication apparently. Your father-in-law's health is not great. I read it once. Didn't reply. Didn't block him either. He was distant enough to be informational without being demanding. The difference between news and noise. December, my lawyer called. Final divorce decree is filed. Your ex-wife accepted the settlement. Equalization payment was calculated on net family property over the marriage period. The condo was excluded as a pre-marriage asset. Everything is settled. File is closed. I was at my desk. I turned my chair to look out at the Bow River. And the business? Complete. Buyout finalized. You're out. Is there anything else? Nothing further. You're free. I hung up and went back to the report on my screen. I met Ingrid in January at a professional development seminar on forensic methodology. She was a CPA at a different firm, insurance fraud division, quiet, precise. When you finished saying something, she asked exactly one follow-up question. The kind that told you she'd actually been listening to all of it, not just the part she wanted to respond to. We had coffee after the seminar. Dinner the following week. On our third meeting, she asked why I'd moved to Calgary. I told her everything. The full version. The Wednesday I came home with groceries. The 6-week meeting I hadn't been invited to. The list. The systematic dismantling. The drive west. She listened all the way through without interrupting. When I finished, she sat with it for a moment. Do you think you'll go back to any of it? She asked. No. She nodded. Do you want to talk about it more, or are you done with it? I'm done with it, I said. Okay, she said, and we moved on. That's the thing about finding the right person. Not someone who needs you. Still half submerged in the wound to understand you. Someone who can see the whole picture and understand that the picture is finished, and you've set it down. And they don't need to pick it back up on your behalf. March brought a promotion. Senior forensic accountant, leading my own file team. My supervisor told me they'd been hoping for someone with my particular background for Tues's treat. I took Ingrid to dinner at a steakhouse in Kensington to celebrate. She raised her glass and said, simply and directly, I'm proud of you. I didn't know quite what to do with that. I said thank you, and meant it in a way I hadn't meant it in years. Spring came and the city opened up. The mountains visible on clear days from certain corners of the downtown core. River paths full of people running and cycling. A city with energy that didn't have the specific exhausting anxiety of Toronto underneath it. I found a climbing gym, found a good independent bookstore, Found people worth spending time with. Therapy wound down to monthly check-ins by April. You've done the work, my therapist said. Most people at this stage are still negotiating with the past. You've stopped negotiating. I told her it was easier, when you stopped expecting the past to give you something it didn't have. She smiled. That's a very accountant way to think about grief. I told her that felt right. Summer. 8 months in Calgary. My old acquaintance emailed once more the last time. I'm going to stop sending these, he wrote. I think you've moved on, and that's probably the right thing. But I thought you should know. Your former business partner and your ex-wife ended things. He's on his own now, lost another client over a separate issue. She's back with her parents, raising the baby there. She told some people in her old social circle that her ex-husband abandoned the family. Most people who know the full story don't take that version seriously. Your in-laws are not doing well. Nothing dramatic. They've just aged. Your father-in-law had some kind of health trouble. I don't know the details. I won't reach out again unless you write back. Take care of yourself. I read it, closed the window, didn't respond. Ingrid was on the couch reading when I closed the laptop. She'd started spending most evenings at my place. A shift so gradual and natural that neither of us had formally acknowledged it. News from my old life, I said. Bad? She asked. For them. Not for me. She went back to her book. She understood, without needing it explained, that some doors are supposed to stay closed. That asking me to prop them open out of some sense of completeness would be its own kind of damage. September, my lawyer called. Your ex-wife's counsel made a final motion, arguing for additional equalization consideration based on your income increase post-separation. No merit, dismissed. The file is permanently closed. She paused. You know, she said, most clients at this stage still want something from the other side. An acknowledgement. An apology. What would I do with an apology? I said. Nothing, she said. That's a healthy place to be. December. 1 year since I'd sat in that hotel room near Pearson making the list. I was in my apartment on a Sunday morning, coffee in hand, looking at the city. In 1 year I had dissolved a marriage and a business partnerships. Driven 2,000 kilometers to somewhere no one knew me, built a reputation in a new firm, met someone becoming the most honest relationship I'd ever had, been promoted, and gotten financially solid in a way that was entirely mine. No joint account. No shared liability. No compromised decisions. On the other side of that ledger, people who had decided, without me, what my life should look like. Who expected me to absorb that decision and continue performing the role of husband, son-in-law, loyal business partner. Who were now, by all available accounts, living inside the particulars misery that follows when the person you took for granted becomes permanently unavailable. I didn't feel vindicated. Vindication implies you're still waiting for something from them. I felt clear. The difference matters more than people think. Ingrid came out of the bedroom with her coffee and stood beside me. What are you thinking? She asked. Ledgers, I said. She laughed. That is genuinely the most you thing you could possibly say. I proposed in March on a trail in Kananaskis, above the tree line, looking south over the range. I'd bought a ring at a jeweler in Inglewood the week before. Simple, elegant, the kind she'd actually wear without adjusting it every few minutes. I didn't rehearse anything. I just said, I want to build something permanent with you. The real kind. She said yes before I'd finished the sentence. We called her family from the trailhead, sitting on a rock with the mountains behind us. Her mother made a sound I can only describe as genuine human joy. Her father made a joke about finally getting a son-in-law who understood a balance sheet. Her sister wanted details about the ring. I sat in the middle of all of it and felt something I didn't have a precise clinical term for. Warmth, maybe, the uncomplicated kind that doesn't have anything hiding underneath it. Ingrid asked quietly if I wanted to call anyone on my end. I don't have anyone to call, I said, but I'm good. She took my hand and didn't push further. We were married in October, at a small venue in Canmore with the mountains behind us, and 50 people who were there, because they wanted to be. No obligation guests, no one performing. Her father walked her down the aisle. Her mother cried the right kind of tears. My colleagues from the firm came. A few people I'd built real friendships with over 2 years in Calgary. Everyone in that room had chosen to be there. During the reception, Ingrid's mother asked gently whether my family knew. We're estranged, she said. Permanently. She touched my arm. I'm sorry. I'm not, I said. She nodded once and moved the conversation forward, without making it into anything more than it was. I appreciated that more than she knew. We honeymooned in Tofino. 2 weeks, hiked, read, ate well, sat in the hot tub watching the Pacific in November rain. One evening Ingrid showed me a photo from the wedding on her phone, both of us mid-law, caught off guard by the photographer. You look happy, she said. I am, I said. It wasn't a complicated answer. She put the phone down. Do you ever think about them? Sometimes I remember they exist, I said. The same way I remember what my office in Toronto looked like. Something that used to be relevant. She kissed me. Good answer, she said. There's something I wrote in my journal that last night in Tofino, because I still keep one. Old habit from therapy that turned out to be worth maintaining. People always assume the exit is the story. The dramatic part, the packing the bag and walking out the door. But the exit is just the opening entry. The actual story is what you build after. Whether you spend the next 5 years looking over your shoulder or looking forward. Whether you keep running the account on people who defaulted, or whether you close it and reinvest. I had every reason to be destroyed by what happened. I chose not to be. Not out of unusual strength. More out of basic accounting logic. You look at what you have, you look at what you lost, you calculate the best path forward from where you actually are. You don't keep throwing resources at a position that was never going to pay out. You write it off, you make better investments. That's the whole of it. The rest is just interest compounding. Somewhere 3 provinces east. In a house that's a little too small and a little too quiet, a woman dials a number she memorized before it was disconnected. She's heard the automated message enough times that she probably mouths the words, along with the recording. She hangs up, looks at a photograph from Christmas 7 or 8 years ago, back when everything appeared to be in the right place. She'll wonder probably, for the rest of her life, where it went wrong. I don't spend any time wondering that. There's no calculation worth running. The numbers don't lie. Here in Canmore. We moved after the wedding, closer to the mountains. A house with a view Ingrid had wanted for years. I close the journal, set it on the nightstand, and turn off the lamp. Outside the Rockies sit in the dark, massive, indifferent, permanent. I fall asleep thinking about the morning, about the hike we'd planned, about the life that keeps, quietly, doing exactly what sound investments do. Not about them. I closed that account a long time ago.